Bobbi's Kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how I make Canadian bacon and also just regular bacon. So what we need to get started, we need obviously a pork loin. Also I have just a little regular pork belly. It's not been cured or anything. Some sugar, some brown sugar, kosher salt, some containers to put your meat in so it can brine. You're going to need things to measure with, like a tablespoon and some measuring cups. Also, this is something you're probably not going to find in the store. You'll probably have to order it online, but it's Prague Powder or Cure number 1. There's two different kinds of cure. There's Cure number 1, which is for like fast meat, like the bacon and the Canadian bacon, smoked sausages, things like that. And then there's a Cure number 2, which is for sausages and things that are going to be hung and dried and fermented. And so we want to make sure that we've got the number 1. Also, some butcher's swine. You probably really wouldn't have to have this, but I like to have it because I like to try to make my Canadian bacon as round as possible. And since it's actually kind of a oval shaped meat, I can tie this up and make it into the round pieces like you're normally used to. And one of these. Now if you're just making the regular bacon from the pork belly, unless it's like over 2 inches thick, you're not going to need this. But for the pork loin, you do want this, and this is actually what it is. This is an injector, and you fill the top of it up here with your brining solution, and you actually pump it into the pork loin, and I will show you that after we get started. You could probably also go to a farm and home supply or a veterinary supply perhaps and get a large gauge needle. That could possibly work too, but if you're going to do this very much, I suggest you actually go ahead and purchase one of these, and I would get the larger one so you don't have to refill it quite so often. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is get my brine started. So this calls for a gallon of water, which I have that there, a cup of brown sugar, we want a cup of white sugar, about 3/4 of a cup of the kosher salt, so 1, 2, and 3. A tablespoon of our cure. And just a word of warning, if this calls for a tablespoon for this brine, do not go over the recommended amount. More is not better. Too much of more can actually kill you. If used like this is supposed to be, it's very safe, and I think I've given the warning before on this. Just like I said, if you use it correctly, it's very safe. So the water is kind of warm because I want to dissolve this. So I'm going to stir this up until it's dissolved and clear in color. Actually kind of an amber color. But after I get this stirred up, we'll be back and we'll go into part 2. Okay, I've stirred up my cure here, and as you can tell and stuff, it's clear, almost looks like an amber type of beer. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this sit and cool, and I'm going to trim up the pork because we have to get the silver skin and the fat off of it. So let's get started on that. Okay, so we're going to trim our pork, and I just sharpened this knife. Make sure your knife is really sharp because it will help to pull the silver skin off. And what silver skin is, it's kind of like the tissue that surrounds the spine. And you want to make sure to get that off because that stuff is uber stringy and you really just can't eat it. And since I'm going to inject this, I've got it on the same this here or whatever, because it's like whenever you go to inject it, it will ooze out of the pork. So you want to make sure that you put it in something that's going to catch it. This or like something like a 9x13 pan would work fine. Like I said, you just want to make sure you get the fat and the silver skin off of this. Okay, let me get you here a little closer so you can see exactly what I'm talking about with this silver skin. There's like strips of, well, it's like silver threads of stuff is actually what it is. But but it's actually kind of a fibrous type part of this. So like I said, you want to make sure and get that off of there. Like I said, if you get started and just keep cutting, you can remove it. So we'll continue trimming this and then we will be back. Now I want to show you something real quick. When you get these whole loins like this, there's like a little extra strip of it that's on here. You want to either cut that off, or what I'm probably going to do with this. And if, as long as it doesn't have any of that silver skin in it, you can go ahead and cure it and smoke it later. But what I'm going to do with this is what I did last time. Is trim this down. And the reason you want to trim this like this is because, see all this silver skin here? And if you don't split this open, you won't get to that. But one thing that you can do, and it's what I did with the other one, is after you cut that off of there, trim it real good, you can actually take and put this piece of meat back on here, and when you bind it like that with the binders or the butcher's twine, it actually will kind of blend it or smash it back together, or bind it, I guess would be a better word. But it's like I said, you want to make sure and get all this silver skin off of here. But you can kind of see how this piece here is darker than the rest of it. So, like I said, I'm going to cut this off. So kind of get started up underneath it. And if you can actually pull some of that loose. But you can see what I'm talking about, the silver skin. Okay, so we've got our pork trimmed up pretty good, and I'm going to go ahead and half this. And this would be, if you wanted to give this as a gift, this would be the piece that you want to give, because it's going to be nice and pink all the way through. That real nice light pink color, like you'd think, you know, associate with Canadian bacon. This other piece, the one I'm going to bind up, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to be as pretty per se or whatever as the other piece would be. So let's go ahead, and it's like I said, you'll be able to tell where this is bound together, but it generally pretty well sticks to the piece you bind it to. So I don't know how else to explain that. Okay, I probably pulled off probably 10 or 12 feet of this stuff. So like I said, you want to leave the length of that on there to hang it with. Blue says that's how mine is. If you lay yours on a rack to smoke, that's fine. Okay. So then you're like pull down, and I go like this, and then just loop that through. Like I said, try to space them out evenly. Okay. This is probably the most challenging part of this whole process. And I'll go back and tighten these. I just want to get started to begin with. So what I'm going to do here, let's go ahead and tie that so it won't slip. All right. And then just tie these two together. Let's make sure it's tight so it doesn't slip when you go to hang it to smoke it. All right, so there we go. Here's our bound and ready to be brine cured Canadian bacon. Okay, so now I'm ready to inject our pork. So let me show you how we do this. Take our syringe. Next I'm just going to stick the tip of this in there and draw it up. So what we want to do is stick this about halfway in there, and we're going to go in at an angle and inject some, and you'll watch it plump up. Then straight down, then this way. Then I'm going to skip down about an inch or two, so you can see it squirt up. And this way. Go down a little bit. You just basically kind of want to inject this several different directions. It's the whole idea. Needs more. So then, straight down at an angle. And just for good measure, I always go in from the end of it, and then push it in all the way, and then inject and pull it out as I go. And do the same from the other side. All right, now there we have our fully injected pork loin. And we'll just move it off the side, but you can see why I said to put it on something. That's it for the injection. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my ice cream tubs, put that in there, and put this one in here. I'm just going to go ahead and throw this meat in with this one. Anyway, I've got my fermented refrigerator or whatever out there set at 38 degrees. I have enough brine for this one. So if you have to, what you can do with this is actually put like a Ziploc bag filled with water to keep the stuff submerged. I'll just lay that on top of there. Keep it under the water. I might go ahead and do the other two just to make sure. Oh, it is. Must be a different container. That's odd. Now let's try. I got another lid down here. I can try this one instead. There we go. That's it. So like I said, turn it over every day, 14 days, and we'll be back to smoke it. Okay, today we're going to smoke our Canadian bacon, and then later on I'm going to go ahead and smoke the belly bacon. So what I want to do right now is I'm going to put the Canadian bacon into the smoker, and I just got heat going right now. I've got it set at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to leave that in there for 2 to 3 hours to try to kind of dry it out. So let's get started. So I've got my Canadian bacon here ready to hang. There's one. And there's the second one. So it's like I said, we're just going to let this hang and dry at 120 degrees for about 3 hours. So we'll be back in a little while. Okay, I'm putting together a mix of pecan and hickory. See, that's smoking. I'll leave that for a minute more. So let's turn this off. There we go. So I'm going to leave this open just a little bit. So I'm going to turn this up to 71. Alright, so I want an internal temperature of 145. And so I'm going to stick this down in the thickest part of that. Put the lid back on. I think I'm going to have to work with my smoke thing some more. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and unplug this and take these in and put them in the oven to finish off. I got about another 30 degrees to go. But I think we've reached about as high as we're going to get on this thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert the probe back into this. Got this set for 145 still, so we'll see. Get up the temperature on that. Okay, I went ahead and turned the oven on up to 200. Right now, we are at 118. So we'll be back.